Back in the building. Yes. Lyrically, I'm Mario Andretti on the Momo. Ludicrously speedy or infectious with the slow-mo. Sports reports is ordered, Mr. Logical, 2-5. And tonight, the draft is over, but the off-season is just beginning. So after we talk about a little bit of NBA expansion, we're going to talk about the one and only Damian, I don't want to be the bad guy, Lillard. Listening to Welcome to Miami. It's one of my favorite songs too, but stop the cap. We're going to talk about some of these trades. Utah just made a move today, helping Atlanta clear up some space, and Mr. Logical is like, what the hell are we doing here? And then, of course, we're going to get you out of here with some get it off my chest. So, Mr. Logical, what's the word?
Yo, listen, like I said, I'm a logical thinker. I just want to understand. Just, we'll get more into it. I'm just wondering why, like, what these teams are doing. Like, I'm just trying to figure out if I was a fan of these teams, and it seems like a lot of teams are making moves for 2026. I'm like, all right, well, go ahead and give me that free trial pay rate on these tickets. Because I don't want to spend $300 on nosebleeds if you putting a C plus product out there, because in 2026, when these draft picks and these rookies that we got over in France and Timbuktu come here and then we can compete, like, I ain't got time for that. I just and that's a lot of these moves is like, like I said, we'll get more into it, but that's like essentially like where I'm at with this NBA move.
Yeah, so we were talking about this weekend, over the weekend. Adam Silver trying to play coy with us, but everything on the streets seems to suggest that after the next CBA, or in 2024, 2025, we may get an expansion announcement. Everybody for the last, I don't know, 10 years have pretty much assumed that it's going to be Vegas and Seattle that ends up with teams. But before we get started, I wanted to ask Mr. Logical, because, we talk about this a little bit. We went through our Vegas rundown and how awesome Vegas is. Is Vegas becoming too saturated for the NBA? Because now that we got the Oakland A's moving, is there enough room for a successful NBA franchise?
It's enough room because you just have to build your facilities to facilitate, that piece.
Because, I mean, they got T-Mobile, right?
Yeah, Oakland's gonna build a 30,000 seat stadium. That might be more than what you need, but you're not gonna build one like Philly. I think Philly's like 40 something thousand seats. So you build 25, 30,000 seat baseball stadium, 15,000 seat basketball arena, whatever. I don't know what T-Mobile's capacity is, but if they're going to play there, you keep it between 15 to 17,000. You could probably sell it out. People just kind of, when you show up to Vegas, you kind of work this expectation that you're going to spend money on extra stuff. So you just factor in like, all right, I want to go see the Las Vegas Thunder.
So T-Mobile,
OKC moves. I want to see the Vegas Thunder, so I will then pay this extra couple $100 to just kind of add it on to my Vegas vacation.
So T-Mobile's 20,000.
20,000 seats. I mean, Vegas, as the population of the city is.
Oh, I actually got that right here. I got it.
It's not a lot of places close to drive into the city.
Yeah, I got it for you right here. Vegas's population is 653,000. A little bit over, but rough number, 653,000.
You
got Henderson nearby. Reno's out of the way.
41 games, 20,000 seat arena. Unless you don't sell anything above that scoreboard level. Like, cause I know I've been to Wells Fargo Center out here, and me and my son went to a hockey game, and we sat that high up, and a substantial number of seats in that upper bowl. if you don't sell any of those, you might be able to chop off like 3 or 4 thousand seats and just sell them low. So when the camera's panning, they can just pan over the audience, like how they did with
Mm-hmm.
COVID. During the COVID years, and Dallas they had all the fans kind of lower, and they could just only pan in on the areas where it had a bunch of
So here's
fans.
the main question: does the NBA need to expand?
I don't think the NBA needs to expand in their current team, like the form that they currently have, because we've been hearing about this new. You're not going to be able to have multiple max players in a luxury tax. We've been getting all of our updates from Wojciechowski. So I'm not sure exactly what that number is, but the NBA says, all right, you have 11 players. You have a starting five and 6 players on the bench. Like that's all you can have is 11. And then that way, Bradley Bill, a player like that, would have to be on another team. It's like you can't pay these 3 guys, and you cap out at 11. Right now, they have like 16 dudes on the roster, 15, 16 dudes, and 4 of them are in Gucci and Balenciaga hoodies on the bench every single game. And they're just hoarding talent. And then you have teams like Detroit, Orlando, Washington, their best young player gets hurt, and now they lose 50 games. San Antonio, they trade away their best player and they don't have any other talent. So if you want to expand and add more teams, you got to limit how many players are on one team. Like if a
Mm-hmm.
player is considered top, if you have 2 players considered top 3 in their position, they can't be on the same team. It has to be something like that because essentially you're going to be adding more teams that are going to put themselves in the lottery by December. Everyone's like that December, January before the All-Star break, they're going to be like, we are a lottery team. So if you add 2 more teams or 4 more teams or whatever number you add, but you don't limit how many players other teams can have, and then the talent doesn't get dispersed, you're just going to add the Vegas Thunder and the Seattle Supersonics as they come back. You're just going to just throw them right in the lottery. We already have an issue that we were discussing with our group. People not knowing who the players were coming in the league from college. Well, if you expand, you're gonna have to spread those players out. And if people aren't like everyone wants to watch Anthony Edwards, great personality. I think people like LaMelo Ball, but I'm not sure people are tuning in if James Wiseman is your star of your young team.
Mm-hmm.
Pablo Banchero, I think people like his name. I think it sounds cool, but I'm not sure how many people, other than a couple of people in our group that are Orlando fans, that really talked about them. I think we talked about them more when Kyrie dropped over 50 on them last season in Brooklyn, and then people talked about him at all. Houston has young talent, but the Houston Lakers game, I don't think that was ever in prime time. Those teams aren't playing on Christmas. So you have to be able to showcase your teams. But if you have, 2 more mediocre teams or subpar teams, you're not going to put them on TV. And we're going to hear, like, reason we started the show is because people only talk about the Lakers.
Well, maybe NBA TV can do more at some point, but I think it would have done it by now if it was planned to do more. I don't think the league is necessarily ready for expansion either, but this is the problem. The problem is if you make it, they will come. So people will spend the money if it exists, just like you were talking about, like as a fan of some of these teams. Why are you charging me all this money to come watch a subpar product? You know why? Because people dumb enough to pay it. You know what I'm saying? It's the same reason why I used to get into arguments all the time. Yo, let's get online and play Madden. I ain't got no Madden. Why? Because they've been making the same
The
game for
same
7 years. You know what I mean? Like with a roster update that I could have already downloaded off the internet anyway. So like people are going to spend the money. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to get your thoughts, because
I'm listening.
I value your logic. But
Ah,
I wrote down some cities, saying to get your opinion on whether or not you think they could support an NBA team. So, like I said, I figure we got Seattle and Vegas coming, so it'd be
okay.
easy. So it'd be easy to talk about them. Then of course, if those are the 2 teams, You got to figure out, like, does New Orleans go east? Does Minnesota go east? I was going to say Memphis, but then I was looking at a map and I was like, damn, Memphis is
Memphis a
like,
lot further west than you thought, right?
yeah. Like, I was like, damn, Memphis is
It blew
like
my mind too.
Arkansas and Missouri, basically.
Yeah, it's super far.
But here's some cities that I wrote down. It's quite a few, so I'm gonna just run down, and then at some point I'll get into their populations. So here's some cities that I came up with: Kansas City, Louisville, Montreal, because I took Vancouver out because they already failed, and going off of the mythological theory, they're too far west and don't enough people live over there. Mexico City, Virginia Beach, Columbus, Pittsburgh, San Diego, and Fresno. Do you think any of those cities could support an NBA team?
Pittsburgh has a football team. I think they could because they're a sports town, but they have hockey, hockey, football, baseball. They have the facilities. They have a rabid enough fan base to incorporate them into basketball. So I think that's sustainable. Mexico City, I would say no, just because you got to get. I don't know what the drive is from Arizona, Texas, or California. Those are the three states, or New Mexico I can think of that border Mexico.
California is close. Texas is far.
I don't know like what that drive is, so I think that's unsustainable. Montreal, I know I was actually looking it up today. It's like a 7-hour drive from me, and I'm in Jersey, but it is in that section of Canada where 70% of the population lives. Mm-hmm. And they had the baseball team, and then they have hockey. So I think that's sustainable because they have their arena already. Kansas City, because they have a football team, once again, baseball, I think you could just push those fans to the arena.
I know Patrick Mahomes is part of a team trying to make that push as well.
Yeah. So you said Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah, Columbus, Ohio. The number 14
Ohio
population.
State. Ohio State rules that region.
So I included them for population reasons. They've been growing for the last 10 years, and right now they sit at 907,000 people, which ranks number 14 in the country.
Yeah, but you have Cleveland there. Cleveland is Ohio's basketball team.
Cleveland!
And they've been mediocre for so long. So it's like you're literally putting another bad ingredient in your stew. So it wouldn't be. I don't think it'd be sustainable. And on top of
what about your neck of the woods,
Virginia Beach?
Yeah.
Logistically, the problem is Virginia Beach is logistically a problem because you can only get there one way, and that one way involves a couple of bridges and some tunnels.
So did you know
a fender bender in that bridge, or fender bender of the bridge, or the fender bender in the tunnel? And either way, you're just like. Either on your way to the game, like I'm never doing this again, or if it happens on your way home, like I'm never doing this again because it's so
did you know that back in 2011, the Sacramento Kings, the beloved Sacramento Kings, actually filed for a trademark to become the Anaheim Royals? And then there were talks about Sacramento.
That's a terrible name.
They were talking
terrible name.
They were talking about going to Seattle at one point back when KJ was the governor and everything, and then the corporations came through at the last minute to save the day. So I was looking at which NBA teams are the least valuable because you brought up, well, why don't we just move this team here and move that team there, and then you don't even need to expand. It's a product that's already there, and the players, you don't have to worry about, filling out these rosters with dudes that we already don't know. So from a value standpoint, these are the top 10 lowest valued NBA teams in order: New Orleans, Memphis, Minnesota, OKC, Charlotte, Detroit, Orlando, Cleveland, Indiana, and your world champion, Denver. Those are the 10 least valuable NBA franchises. So out of that list,
Denver is 10 or Denver is like
Denver is 10. Yes, I was going from 1 to 10.
Okay.
So looking at that list, I know there were rumors and talk. I don't know how serious it was, but a lot of people assumed that A-Rod would potentially move Minnesota to Seattle once he got some stake within the T-Wolves. So that was a talking point. I know KG came out and said that he wanted to keep the team in Minnesota. He didn't want to keep his ass in Minnesota, but he wanted to keep the team in Minnesota. New Orleans, I think, is primed to move. I think that they got Zion there, so like they got a little cachet, but it
But
don't
they're
matter
owned
if
by
he
the
ain't.
same people own the Saints.
Yeah. And then Charlotte, you just never know. Like I love the Hornets, I love their colors, I love the uniforms and all that, but that's all they've ever been is a team with cool uniforms. I don't want to see Detroit move.
Detroit's a staple. You
Orlando.
can't keep shitting on Michigan. They already got bad water.
I know, and they got a city called Hell. Orlando, maybe, but I think I like having a team near Disney, just having that imprint there. But Orlando hasn't done anything in years. They got the rookie of the year, so maybe things are going to go up for them. And
They'll
then
trade him in 2 years.
what do you think about Memphis? Like, you think the Grizzlies are good there long term?
Probably not long term. My dad went on a guy's trip. A bunch of retired veterans went on a guy's trip to Memphis, probably May, and he said they were at a stoplight, broad daylight shootout. Just watching the shootout happen on the opposite side of the street. Dudes parked the car, ran up, bang, 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 ran back, jumped in the car. It might just be, and he said they were on Beale Street.
Did he mention anything about colorful braids?
Nah. that was a toy, man. It's a toy gun.
Okay.
But he said he was on Beale Street, and that was like an iconic street. It's like Bourbon Street or the Vegas Strip or Times Square. It's like one of these places you just relate to the city. And he said it felt kind of run down. So I can see them moving, but that's probably it, because there's no other reason to keep a sports team there other than whatever local economy it feeds. I.e., when LeBron left Cleveland, they talked about all the restaurants that shut down because Cleveland was bad for so many years in a row that downtown wasn't popping. Maybe it's the same effect in Memphis. But if you are a business owner, you're like, listen, I want to move. Vegas offers a lot of good tax exemptions to people with a lot of money. That's why it's a lot of celebrities fleeing California to move to Vegas, because the mansion tax is like they're just kind of taxing the wealthier people in California and using like their property as as leverage for the tax. So a lot of business people are moving places to make those kind of moves. So if Tennessee offers the Memphis owners and FedEx and everybody else, they all get good deals out of it, then Memphis won't move. New Orleans won't move because that ownership group owns the Saints. So like you got everything you need right there. You complete control, and you have a marquee player. So I
For
can't see them
now.
moving. For now, I don't think they're gonna move him.
Well,
Like
I
I
don't
said, the
know.
only reason is like either if he doesn't play, then he doesn't play, then you're just going to obscurity, just like the rest of these teams that we're always talking about moving.
Well, I was just going to say, I know there had been reports out, like they're saying that he's up in the gym now, I guess, but there was reports that came out recently saying that Zion and the franchise basically had no relationship at all. And I always think
And
about
why they give him over $180 million? It ain't like the relationship got worse after you give
they
somebody.
were they were
If
hoping.
I give you
It's
180
hope.
million dollars, will we stop doing this
You know
podcast
why?
next
You
week
know
after I
why?
give you $180 million?
You know why? Because people of your ilk, I always wanted to say that. People of your ilk, if they didn't pay him, they would say things like, "This is why New Orleans is New Orleans. This is why nobody wants to
I
go there.
said that
This is
when they
why."
paid him, though.
You
That's the
know what
thing.
I'm
I said that
saying?
when they paid him is like, how am I gonna pay you? Literally, I think the amount of games he had played, it was something like $2 million for the amount of games he had played per game. I'm like,
Yo,
no.
I just remember the draft lottery when New Orleans won the first pick
And
and
the Knicks
watching,
were so disappointed.
yeah, watching Zion sit there. And that was like my face when I found out I had orders to Wyoming. It was like the same exact thing. So I resonated with what Zion was going through at the moment. you know, but you know, but that's why expansion is a problem. That's another reason why expansion is a problem because you know, like Vegas, I can see being desirable. I don't know how desirable Seattle is to live in. You know, I know the cost of living up there for us mere mortals is ridiculous. But I feel like Seattle would just be another team complaining that they can't get marquee players unless there's just some nostalgia. But none of these dudes were alive when the Supersonics were a thing, so
Yeah,
I don't think that exists.
I think, like I said, I think the you have hockey, you got the history of basketball, you got the Seahawks,
Got the Mariners.
Mariners, Seattle right now. I think politically has been kind of weaponized as far as like I think they've kind of like they've done like this thing where they kind of decriminalized
Mm-hmm.
drug use, but instead of it having this, all right, now that I'm not being convicted of possession when I'm using drugs, I can go get help. It's people are just kind of using them out in the open, and it's kind of taking over certain parts of the city,
Mm-hmm.
which every city has that. Like you're from Baltimore, I'm from Virginia. If you go through DC, it's like some places like might have been real nice, but then it's been kind of overrun by crime, and it happens to the best of every city. But I think Seattle is one of those cities that's being like politically weaponized. So I'm not sure like the negotiation to move a team there, or if they have the leverage to do that. They have the teams already in place, and I
Mm-hmm.
think they're good with that. But I think if you show up, it's like showing up to a venue to like, I want to have my daughter's Sweet 16 here. There's like people might have done it in the past, and there's might be some other venues in the area, but you're like, I'm trying to do this new thing for myself. I get you guys are all accustomed to X, Y, and Z, but
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be pristine because I'm moving my team from here to here. So I want it to
Mm-hmm.
be perfect.
And
So I think that's probably one of the drawbacks that they're gonna have.
well, that's why
On top of the
I
fact I don't really think it's needed. I don't think anybody can really argue that you need another team in the NBA.
well, that's why I eliminated Vancouver. You know, because looking back,
It's
at
too far.
Vancouver, yeah. So looking back at Vancouver, you know, they were there. The Grizzlies existed there for 6 years. We had the whole Steve Francis episode, and like I was reading today about how part of what set him off was going through the airport and like I guess people like that worked there were asking if like him and his brother and their friends were like a rap group and all that. So like so that set him off.
The
But
Caucasian conundrum.
but they had attendance ranks of 2017, 19, 16, and 29th. So they ended up trading Steve Francis in this 11 team deal or 11 player deal, where you didn't know hardly any of the players, So I think Vancouver, and like I said, like going off of your take about how far west Vancouver is, there's just not enough people, I think, to grow what they had initially in the first place. Whereas Montreal, on the other hand, maybe you pick up some sloppy seconds, if you will, off of Toronto. You know, Montreal has its own identity within the nation of Canada. Like I know there's been times where,
They're more French. They're more
yeah,
French, and
right,
Toronto's more like Caribbean.
right,
I think just culturally, I think one essentially I think is one more Caucasian, the other one's more
yeah. Well, I know that for a long
Afro
time.
Latina.
Well, I know for a long time Quebec, was fighting for independence to become their own nation, to break away from Canada and all that. So like, so like we talked about this before, where like having a team in like an NFL team in San Antonio, when you have a team in Houston or Dallas, where you going to get the fans from because this thing is established. I don't think that applies to Montreal in the same sense of Toronto.
Yeah,
So but yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a need for expansion outside of the fact of the NBA has probably, I'm sure, done some studies saying that they can make X amount of money if they go to these places. And I mean, all this stuff is inevitable. Like there's going to be expansion, even if it's not now. 10 years, 15 years from now, there's going to be some kind of expansion at some point. Every league expands at some point. Like even baseball's talking about
Oh, but are
expansion.
we? I think baseball maybe adding a couple of spots. But are we? I think are we at enough though? Like realistically, we have 32 NFL teams, 30 NBA teams, 30 baseball teams, probably 30 hockey teams. We're building up MLS. At some point, it's going to be enough is enough. Like what you have is what you have. The expansion, because I can't, as of right now, thinking about it and having a discussion with you, I'm not seeing a reasonable, because if you expand, more than likely you got to go two teams at least. So that's
Mm-hmm.
two cities.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, probably four, just for the
Hey,
so
NBA
maybe for the
2K give
playoffs.
you 6 slots.
Um, like I said, unless you're going, if you go Vegas, Seattle, okay, then you got to move a couple teams west. That's that. I think that's the extent because if you want to go foreign, shot of Montreal, which is just it's still North America. I just don't see where you get value considering you have like you just read off the top 10, Denver being 10, and value. They have a really
Least
good player that
value. Mm-hmm.
least value, but like just from one
Right,
to
right,
10. So
right,
like
right.
they're 19th in value if you go the other way, right? Something like that, or
Like 19
20th.
or 20. Yeah.
Yeah, they just happen to have a player that they grabbed in the second round, and then they were able to build around a couple of injured guys. They had Michael Porter Jr. who missed some time from injuries. Jamal Murray missed 2 years because of the ACL, or the two playoff runs because of the ACL, and they all came together and it just worked. These other 9 teams don't give themselves that same chance because they could have fired Mike Malone after you had two-time MVP
Mm-hmm.
get swept out of the playoffs in 2021. That is what these other teams did. So the NBA doesn't have a team problem as far as like we don't have enough teams to showcase the talent. They don't have enough quality run teams
Yeah, that's what I was
to
about
be
to say. They got an
to,
ownership problem.
to be sustainable for entertainment. So like
You got
they're
dudes like Ted Leonsis, just making a whole like boatload of money.
and then you got a guy like Jordan. Let's keep it on it. He pays a little bit of a few hundred million for his stake in the team, sold it for $3 billion, and they had a 43% winning percentage for the last 15 years, and he still made $3 billion.
You
So
know,
if you are the owner, if you're the like even this dude who owns the Phoenix Suns, he just spent his money, so it's like $4.5 billion. I don't know if that's gonna increase anytime soon, but the dude that was on Phoenix before, Phoenix has some awful years until they got Chris. They went to the bubble,
until they
got a
got
little win
James
streak,
Jones in there as the
and
GM.
and then they got James Jones as GM. Then they got Chris Paul as the floor general, and then they went to they had a couple of good playoff runs to include NBA Finals. And then that dude was able to get like accused of some heinous behavior and still made $4.5 billion on his team.
Donald
So
Sterling
these
made $2 billion.
Dallas Sterling made $2 billion. So it's like
You know,
these owners aren't really incentivized to move. It's like I'm just gonna stay here. I'm gonna keep selling these tickets and these jerseys, and when I'm ready to sell this team, like whoever owns Detroit, they're still going to make billions. Whatever they pay, none of them are going to lose money. So the incentive to even be good is gone. So the fact that these teams, San Antonio may not be in the lottery next year, maybe they will because they have zero team around Wemby.
I've been listening to these different shows and like a lot of people are like literally penciling San Antonio into the play-in, and like they're talking about like this free agent is going to go there. They're going to get Brooke
27
Lopez, and
and
they're going to,
55.
like just some wild stuff going on. Like I like I
20,
like I like two players out of the whole roster, and one of them hasn't
20,
even played a game yet.
27 and 55.
That sounds about right, which would be like an 11-game improvement. So, so it is what it is, but Portland needs to start talking about improvement, because Mr. Damian Lillard, is going to watch the off-season process go through to make a decision on whether he wants to. So look, this is what pisses me off, right? So so look, Damian Lillard's been in the NBA long enough and in Portland long enough to know ain't no free agent willingly coming there. That's number one. The franchise is not willing. I talked about this, like, they, not saying that he was the answer, but Kevin Love was out there for years. He's from there. Carmelo was out there for years. The ninth all-time leading scorer was out there for years. You could have got him pretty cheap, low risk, high reward. They didn't do any of this. They left
They
him and
got him for 1 year.
They left him and CJ McCollum out there, playing mini me, and it worked out 1 year. People got hurt. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. But what I don't like is after the draft, they talked to the GM for Portland, and paraphrasing, he said something along the lines of like, you don't pass on a talent like Scoot Henderson. Like, he's too good to not select. So now, like, it's up to Damian on what he wants to do. Somebody's got to be the bad guy. Either Dame has to say, I don't like this direction. Get me out of here. Nobody's going to kill him for it because he's the face of loyalty. And if you're Portland,
I'm about to kill him for it.
I'm not going to kill him for it. But if you're Portland, people are going to say, hey, you know what? This is the business of the league. Like Olajuwon didn't finish as a Rocket. Ewing didn't finish as a Knickerbocker, so on and so forth.
Dominique went to the Clippers.
Yeah, so on and so forth.
All right, so but not necessarily like I'm not gonna kill Dame. I was just being facetious. What Dame did, and you talk about the loyalty piece. Dame essentially in his prime, which I know current NBA players, their prime is longer, just because health and wellness and the ability to take care of their body, so forth and so on. So 5 years ago, when the super teams were all the rage, so we're gonna go 2018, the KD, the Golden State, LeBron, after that season, then going to LA, like all these moves, Kawhi getting Paul George to come play with them, and all these guys were in these text messages in these group chats, and they were like fabricating their super team. Dame was like staunched against it, just a staunch opponent of that concept and that ideology altogether. And he was vocal about it. I don't want to team up with guys. I don't want I want guys that want to play and win the right way. I want to stay here. I want to win one for Portland. So he spent his entire prime just going ham for Portland. And now Portland's like, well, we aren't going anywhere. We keep hiring and firing coaches, our GMs. We're getting guys in that are good in an interview but can't practically apply what the things they said in the interview. And we're sputtering. And they're sputtering every single year. They make bad trades. They let the wrong guys go. They should have made a trade draft night. If they wanted to make a splash for Dame, they either should have moved Dame draft night or moved the number 3 pick and one of these other guys that they picked recently and try to make something. Send them down to LA, get them Paul George, whatever.
And he was out there.
Whatever trade you need to make, they should have made something instead of drafting. And like I said, I thought it was a good idea that Dame can learn from Scoop. I think it's a great thing. But if they knew before they made that deal that Dame was literally 1.5 feet out the door, then they should have just made the move for Dame draft night. They should have made the move trade. They should have traded him for, I don't know, the number 6 or number 11 pick from Orlando. Sent them down to Orlando. I love you, but I'm about to get the number 3 pick. I'm about to get 6, 11, and whatever else I can get for you, and I'm going to rebuild my team. And I understand the loyalty piece, but now what are you going to do? Where's your leverage? Where's your leverage as a team? Like, you're going to trade him for another guy his age? You're going to trade him for, like, you can't trade him for Bradley Beal, is already gone. You're going to trade him and try to do a sign and trade for one of these trades?
Give us that trade Nick Wright was talking about.
So Nick Wright's trade is, I just had on TV, sending Damian Lillard, just Dame, down to Miami. Miami sends Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic.
Yeah, not Jokic.
Not Jokic. Nikola Jovic, the kid Juan Yaquez that they just drafted, Caleb Martin.
Yeah, Jaime Jaquez, yep.
Jaime Jaquez,
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Martin, a 2027 first round pick, 2029. So it's one, two, three, four players, two picks. Essentially, considering that Nicola and the kid from UCLA haven't played at all, Miami would be trading Hero and Martin for Dame Lillard.
Bienvenidos, I Miami. You
And I
know,
get that he wants to go to Miami. He should have said all that before the draft. It's
fuck
the
him.
same.
Like, so look, at this point, right? Dame is Mr. Portland. You know, at this point, even Clyde Drexler, ended up leaving or whatever. So, I feel like at this stage, you would like to think that in a perfect world, you could sit down, get a list from Dame and say, hey, we want to do right by you. You held us down when you didn't have to. You could have left 5 years ago. You could have left 8 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so let's
Hold on,
try to.
real quick. Okay, I get what you're saying, but he has 4 years,
Yeah, but I don't want to pay him
$213
none of that.
million.
I don't want to pay him none of
So,
that.
so as a team, if I get it, as a team and owner, you want to sit down, you want to do right by the player.
Right. I
Well,
mean, it might not work out, but I
I
at
gave
least
you
want
a
to hear
quarter
him
of a
out.
billion dollars. I'm giving you a quarter of a billion
I
dollars
did right by you
over
already.
the next 4 years. I did right by you.
Yeah.
Have fun in Florida.
Yeah. But I'm sure that there's other teams out there that can give them something better than what Miami could get them. And you're leaving me 3 to 4 years early. So you don't get to dictate to me. This is the problem with the NBA because a lot of these players. So Dame has too much time left on his contract because usually what happens is you get somebody like AD in his final year in New Orleans and you go, hey, I'm gonna send you to Boston, and then AD goes, yeah, but I'm not going to resign there. And then Boston's like, well, we ain't going to touch him if he ain't going to resign or whatever. We're not going to try to spend this
Yo,
time trying to convince him to stay.
AD did the most boss move. He wore a shirt that said "That's all,
That's
folks." In
all,
his last,
folks. A beat. So
I
with
loved it. I
Dame,
love it. It was so petty. I loved it.
so with Damian, like, look, Dame, you've been the face of this franchise. You could have been left us, like, whatever the case may be. Let's talk about this. Give me 3 to 4 teams that you would like to go to. But the problem is now that this information is out there, he wants to go to Miami. He potentially wants to go to Brooklyn. What's going to make them teams give me anything worth my while? So
Call the
now,
GM that's easy to push over.
so now it's duck season. And I can call anybody I want that is willing to listen to a trade for you. Because at the end of the day, if I'm doing right by you, you got to do right by me because you said you love Portland. So don't put me in a position where I'm picking up welfare, when you could get me some alimony. You know what I'm saying? So Nikola Jovic, no thank you.
He might
You
be
know what I'm
good.
saying? He might
That's
be
what
good.
Chris Broussard said. He might be good. He's like, I don't know. These foreign players have turned out to be
I've
good.
heard great things about him.
He said, I have no other thing to think of other than he
No,
might be good.
I heard great things about him going into the draft. But hypothetically, let's just say I call Gotham City and they're like, hey, we'll give you RJ Barrett, we'll give you Randall, maybe, or whatever, if you want Randall, so on and so forth. Like, I want that over whatever Miami's trying to sell me. Like, what if Philly calls me and they're like, yo, we got this assassin scorer named Tobias Harris,
Philly
along with
got nothing
Tyrese
for you.
Maxey or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? We got Tyrese Maxey with this pick, or whatever. Like, I'll take Tyrese Maxey over Tyler Hero.
I think you could take. I like the Tyrese Maxey piece. I think as far as for Portland,
And now I can tell Harden to take a hike.
because he's now like he's proven that he wants and he enjoys taking the big shot, which is sometimes you just got to see if a guy is a big shot taker, big shot maker.
Right.
Like Dame has proven that
And
he
you
is.
already got Mr. Big Shot as your head coach.
I just look at it like you if you wanted to trade him, then there should have been trades on the table that you reviewed prior to the draft.
They should have
The
traded him
draft-
as soon as they got rid of CJ.
Potentially, it should have been we are starting over because if you're not if you're not going to build a team that wins, like and we're going to talk about a couple more trades here before we get out of here too. I just feel like when you make a trade, it should make sense to the people who are like, why? Like, I should be able to understand why you make a trade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I might not know everything about all the players, but if you trade your 7 foot center and you get a 6'2" guard back, a 6'9" guy who comes off the bench, and a couple of draft picks for 4 years from now, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, who's going to replace the 7 foot
There
guy you
had to
just
have been
got rid of?
something better and
It had
more.
to be
Yeah.
something better, or you had to look at it like, I'm not getting a replacement for the 7 foot guy. Like, you don't like if we're planning a vacation, like, yo, Mike, let's do a guys trip. I'm thinking let's go to let's go to LA. Let's go to LA. We'll check out a Dodgers game, whatever, whatever, whatever. And you're like, all right, check it out. I got another idea. Let's go to Oklahoma City. I heard they got great barbecue. I'm not saying it's not a good time, but if I'm presenting you with LA
You
and
can't give
Dodger
me
ticket,
OKC.
you can't give me OKC right after that.
Right.
So it's like,
Right. Give me
and I feel
Chicago
like,
or something.
give me Chicago, like give me like, yo, even give me Dallas. I'm like, all right, LA, like this, like the Dallas of the Midwest. I mean, LA's like, like Dallas, like the LA of the Midwest. Okay, I kind of rock with that. You're like, all right, let me get maybe New Orleans. Okay, I can work with that. But if you off the rip just offer me OKC and just sit down and like, okay, boom, what do you think of that? No, 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 no.
And
I
then
don't want
put
to do
your
it at
feet
all.
up. And then put your feet up like you dropped
Like
the
it's a
word.
great deal. Know what I'm saying? Stroking your pet cat like a cartoon villain. Like, yo, that's not the move. I don't want that. And that's what I
Yeah,
feel like.
it's like Dr. Evil. What about Oklahoma City?
Yeah, and it's
You
like,
know?
what? Get out. Like, you hang up
what
the
what
Zoom call.
to be fair though, Damian is coming off his best season as far as like his scoring, 32.2, which was up 8.2 from last year. This is his fourth highest 3-point shooting percentage. His highest field goal percentage overall this past season. You know, problem. He's played less than 70 games in each of the last 4 years. So you got that going for you. But at this point, nobody cares. Like Miami just wants somebody that I'm just assuming Miami wants somebody that got drafted at this point.
They want a guy that can like literally just kind of create his own, who can just go on his own.
So Dame on
Dude,
Miami. Dame on Miami. They're the favorites in the East.
Uh, if they keep Bam, Struce, Robinson, like if they keep everybody but Hero, like everybody that was in the starting lineup for the NBA Finals games 1 through 5, if they keep that team and all they lose is Tyler Hero and some draft picks, I would give them a shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine Milwaukee giving away 2 games again that easily, because
Unless Middleton leaves.
That set the tone. That set the tone for Miami's whole run, was the fact that those games, because they won it in 5,
Mm-hmm.
in games 4 and 5, Milwaukee was up 16 points in the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
They hold on to both of those. Now they're up 3-2 after 5 games, going to Miami, where Miami, as we saw throughout the playoffs, weren't that great at home. So it wasn't like, oh, a lucky shot here and there, but they were like up double digits.
Mm-hmm.
And then Miami clawed back. Milwaukee did get rid of the coach. They still have Giannis. He's rested, because that's always another thing. When you get a good team and they go out of the playoffs early, that guy's chilling. Whatever he's working out, he's doing. He's been chilling since April.
But now they got a first-time head coach.
True, but I mean, basketball is basketball. As long as you're not out there like Missoula, just not calling timeouts when teams going on fucking 11-0 runs when you're up 14. Let's get a timeout in here.
Well, now we got to see if Middleton and
Let's have a
Lopez come
conversation.
back, and then there's word that Bobby Portis is probably going to leave as well. So Milwaukee may not look the same next year. I mean, I think Middleton will be back, but But the other two
your
probably not.
French players are pretty much like Middleton. If Middleton comes back and Brook Lopez doesn't, then you can get Jakob Poeltl for 16 million a year, 18 million a year. Because like I said, we went over their numbers. I think all these guys are going to want a slight bump,
Mm-hmm.
15, 20% at least in what they were currently getting. And the market is going to warrant that because there's no quote unquote marquee free agent on the board. There's no Luka's not out there. I mean, Kyrie's out there, but they've soiled his name so vehemently. Uh, Randall's not out there, and he's more of like an upper echelon role player, marquee. You know, like if he's hot, they'll put him in a marquee kind of player. There's not many guys like that even available. Kyle Kuzma is a big personality, blonde hair, played in LA for a while, the Kardashian life, but realistically, he's better off just getting re-signed by Washington. I don't see a lot of the free agents that are available, like those top 10 guys
So
we've gone through
so
that you can pay to move there.
so Dame to Brooklyn. What's their ceiling?
Brooklyn tends to make bad deals, so I'd imagine they would give up too much to get Dame, and he would be in Portland on the East Coast. It realistic because like if you're Brooklyn because they made the bad deal to get James Harden, I mean just everybody in Brooklyn should be fired. They had KD and Kyrie just show up to their playoff team. They were in the playoffs. Kyrie and KD said, New York's kind of cool. Want to go to the Knicks? Nah, let's go to Brooklyn. I like the uniforms better.
And
We'll
I don't
just
like
take
their
the train
coach,
out.
so get the coach out of here too.
So yeah, we will get rid of the coach. So I think Kyrie played with the coach 1 year, but he only played like 11 and a half games or 20 or 30, whatever the number is. He didn't play 82.
Mm-hmm.
So you have your playoff team that battled Philly. You add KD and Kyrie, and then as soon as KD and Kyrie get on the floor together after letting KD heal for a whole year, and then Kyrie heal for most of the year because he came off injury, the first thing you do is say, let's blow this up before we get to December. You could have got 15 games, and you would have they probably would have been realistically, if they would have played 15 to 20 games, man, I got them at like 16, like 16-4, somewhere in that range. Because Spencer Dinwiddie is a 6'6", 6'7" guy, handles the ball, handles the pressure, moment never looked too big, and he's playing off of Kyrie and KD. So Brooklyn would probably give up Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Claxton, and like 2 picks to get Dame, just because they need a marquee because they feel like
Well, I
because
was
they're in
going to
New York
ask
they got
you.
to beat the Knicks, and they would make a bad deal.
Well,
It'd
I
be
was
a
going.
good deal for Portland, but I
Well,
guarantee you, the
well, I was going to
Brooklyn's
ask
involved, they
you.
make a bad deal.
Well, I was going to ask you if you're Portland, do you take Ben Simmons?
I don't think Big Simmons because he doesn't play. I mean, he's 6'10" and he is as useful in the basketball court as I am because he simply does not play. Like it's dope. I've seen Ben Simmons in person. Like I was at the Jay-Z concert, shout out to Hove, and I walked out the Wells. It was a Wells Fargo, and I walked down the hallway, and he was walking down. One of the tallest human beings I've ever seen, like walk past me, and he was wearing like some Timbs. He looked like a giant.
Yo, did them
So the
dudes
fact
really
that
throw
he
the
doesn't
diamond
dunk,
up? Did those dudes really throw the diamond up before they shot at Cam?
I don't believe in this. I don't believe in this hyperbole these hip hop artists talk about. But like I said, Ben is he's just a giant human being, and then you see him out there, and it's like, why won't you dunk the ball? I mean, if your back hurts, I get it. There's some of the best medical care in the history of humans on Earth right now. You can go to any country in the world and get the absolute best back
Yo,
specialist,
just
best neck specialist anywhere in the world. Anywhere
im-
in the world you want to go. You have a
imagine how
million dollars to spare. You can get your whole body squared away, but yet you can't get on the floor in 2 years. Two
imagine how
years.
different his life would be if he just took a layup.
If he just dunked that ball, he would have had no back problems.
You know what I'm saying?
Fit
Just
as a goddamn fiddle. Fit. Clean as a whistle. His whole career.
so
And,
where
and
where
then
do we go?
B started crying after that.
So where do
Uh
we go? Like on October whatever when the NBA season
season
starts,
tips off.
is Dame on the Blazers?
No. I say no because I think right now they're in a perfect position to go young and see what happens. Just
I'm a
simply just go young and see what happens. You have a young head coach as far as like time, in the staff. Jeremy Grant's a free agent. He's gonna chase the pie. You had Jurkic, who's always injured. I think your best bet is to simply take your number 3 pick, who's ready to prove himself, move Dame Lillard for whatever best deal you realistically can get, and you can look out for him. But he's no matter what, he's going to get $213 million between now and
You already looked out
2027.
for him.
Yeah, my son's a freshman in high school, so when my son graduates, so my son's graduation day, Dame Lillard would have made $213 million. So I think he'll be all right, no matter where he goes. Even if you have to send him to Detroit and get Cade Cunningham and Ivy and some picks, whatever you got to do, wherever you have to send them to make it work, you just got to do it. Because looking out for the player, because big people made it seem like Phoenix getting KD was looking out for the player. No, that was Brooklyn looked out for themselves a little bit. They got some pieces back.
Yeah, they definitely did.
They did too much movement when they initially had, and they got crazy big eye when they thought they can get James Harden and have this ultimate big three when they should just kept Jared Allen, should have kept Spencer Dinwiddie, should have kept Karis LeVert. That team would have been competing for championships if they just would have kept it Kyrie, KD, and the squad.
Yeah,
We wouldn't even be talking about Miami.
yeah, but I can't help but think that they would get a better deal from Brooklyn. Because I mean with Brooklyn they could at least ask for Nick Claxton. And like Tyler Hero like doesn't move the needle for me at all. Like I love the song. Shout out to Jack Harlow. I love that beat. Like I still play 2K22 just to hear that song sometimes. But we got these trades going on. We talking about Dame getting trade, but there's also some other movement. We saw John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks. It took 3 years in the making to get this man traded, and he is now the latest member of the Utah Jazz for a second-round pick in the ghost of Rudy Gay past. And Mr.
Yo,
Logical
how
told
old is
me,
that dude?
Mr. Logical told me that basically, like, yo, Atlanta fans just need to go on strike. They need to not come back
Yeah,
to the arena.
free trial, $30 tickets. We packing this. We packing this whole place. You can go $120 for the lower level, 90 for the middle, 30 for everything else. I'm not paying you money when you out here just winging it. Like there's things that you can do to ensure that you don't just give your team away. And everyone keeps talking about they're talking about Golden State. They talk about it with uh, Phoenix with CP3, and they're talking about it with now Atlanta. Oh, they're getting off that money. No, don't get them off the hook. You paid these dudes this money less than 2 years ago, and all of a sudden they're just falling apart. Mike, me and you've been friends since 2013. That's 10 years. I've never been like, man, Mike is terrible. And we didn't even hang out that much before we became friends. You know what works and doesn't. So instead of giving these guys $170 million contracts and hoping, just be honest in that moment. A guy like Zion didn't deserve his extension. You should just let him walk. John Collins didn't deserve it. If you felt like you were going to get rid of him in a couple of years, because you have that feeling, Jordan Poole wasn't worth that money.
All right,
CP3 was too old to get that money. So
they say a woman knows within the first 5 minutes.
if she's gonna sleep with you or not.
Yeah, there
Other than
you
that,
go.
you're in the friend zone.
There you
So
go.
just be thankful that y'all like to hang out and go to Waffle House and Denny's, wherever you go, after you pay for her drinks all night.
So I was trying to explain to Mr. Logical. I
I get
that
heated, man.
that these things can't be judged in the moment. There's always something at play here. We have to revisit this probably in 2 years and see what Atlanta does, because the report had came out earlier in the week that the mandate was get under the luxury tax. What's the point of us being in the luxury tax and we ain't contending anyway? So what this particular deal did was, and I'm reading from my phone, so I apologize for the viewers on YouTube. I'm not distracted. I'm just trying to read this so I get it right. So coming into today before the trade, Atlanta was $9.3 million over the luxury tax. This deal took them to 13.7 million below the tax. It also opened up a $12.4 million mid-level exception, and a 4.5 BAE, and then it generates a $25.3 million trade exception, with the goal of next year, DeJounte Murray is a free agent, Sadiq Bey is a free agent, and Okongwu is a free agent. So that's step one of why they did this trade.
Cool.
You know what I mean?
All those dudes were on the team last year when they were in the playoffs, right?
They were.
How'd they go?
Yeah, Mid-Atlanta, right? That's what we called them.
That's
And
what I'm saying.
but like I said, 2 years, because I assume that this is the only deal that Atlanta's going to make this offseason, because they also have some decisions to make about people like DeAndre Hunter, who we brought up the other day as being a disappointment. So they have decisions to make. So, like, that's why I said you got to give it 2 years, because then next year, when they resign these dudes, at least two of the three maybe, they have extra money to go get somebody else. And who knows, Trae Young might be on the table. We've heard that report, over the course of time. So it's hard. So in the moment, we're looking at this like Rudy Gay, but maybe they buy Rudy Gay out, clear up another roster spot.
Yeah, $6 million, 6.4
And
million.
you go do you cook it with grease at that point. Just like the Wizards, right? They did the Jordan Poole thing. Maybe they flip him at the trade deadline.
You can't.
Maybe they trade him at the end of the season. I don't know.
Can't.
But the
Because
point
the way like that's the thing. The
with the
NBA
new
paints
CBA,
teams,
yeah.
the NBA paints teams into a corner. Hence, why teams are so bad for so long if these plays don't hit. That's why I'm like, why are you giving money out knowing that if this doesn't hit, you are stuck with it, or you're gonna get a terrible trade. So I got an article about that. Brad Botkin from CBS Sports, and what he said, he was like, literally, bottom line, the deal Atlanta wanted for Collins never came.
Basically, it's just like Miles Turner.
It's because you put yourself in a position of where you are paying for what you think you need when it's really not even what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many teams get stuck in that, and then they get stuck. And Utah, for some reason, seems to be bailing everybody out. I don't know how they took on Russell Westbrook and bought him out and sent him out of the way, and that didn't cost them. And now they're taking on Collins, and they're going to take on that 7-8 million. Like I said, I'm looking for internships. Looking to the camera. I want to know how y'all do this. I work for free. Philly, just holla at me. I'm 30 miles away. I can shoot right down. I'll be there. Brooklyn, I'll take the train up.
Utah winning 45 games next season, and they got these picks.
Listen, Danny Ainge has all those picks. He ain't pick a goddamn thing yet, other than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which fell right into his lap. He didn't do anything with the secondary picks that he had in every one of these rounds.
Yeah,
nothing. He's just a bunch of dudes he's a guy with a bunch of poker chips. But as soon as you get in the hand, you can fleece him for like 2,000 of them chips. And then people make it seem like, oh, look how good of a job he's doing. Like, well, he never won the tournament. He got a lot of chips. Never won the tournament. I mean, like I said, I get that you made the deal because they want him. But I think a lot of it is these teams and coaches, they don't marry the concept, the timeline, the players, and the executives. Like they don't. It's not. That has to be cohesive. That has to be one good meal. Like not even meal. It has to be a good cake. Because when you bake, you have to be precise. Like it has to be on point. You can't not put enough butter in your brownies or not put enough milk. Like whatever the case may be, it has to be precise for the cake to taste good. You can make gumbo and just wing it, a la putting KD on Golden State, and it just works out. putting James Harden and Brooklyn, and if they all stay healthy, they will win a lot of games. Because like 18-2 when they play 20 games or something. Or when LeBron went down to Miami with D Wade, they figured it out. They won a couple of chips and went to four. Even though it was completely discombobulated and that he had beef with Pat Riley for that whole time because he couldn't get his family on the plane, yada yada yada. They still won a bunch of games because it's gumbo. You store it all together. Denver, that's a cake. That should have had to work perfectly. Miami now is a cake. Not a big cake, but it's like everything's put together properly. Atlanta and teams like Atlanta and Detroit and Orlando and New Orleans, they sign coaches like Stan Van Gundy. Stan Van Gundy hasn't been a relevant coach for 14 or 15 years. It's just his time is gone. Guys like Doc River in Philly, his time is gone. You need new ways of thinking in the building. Then you get a lot of teams that have good players that are about to come up with contract. Then you fire the coach, and then you bring in a new coach, a new philosophy. They don't give a shit about this new coach because I'm already on a contract. I don't care about Quinn Snyder. He's not going to let me shoot the way I want to shoot.
Yeah,
So I'm going
Trey
to bring this
already got
kid.
rid of 2 of them.
So you keep getting rid of these coaches. So now it's like these coaches know, like, yo, man, you don't want to go work for Mike Wilson, man. He'll fire you if you don't tell him his wife has a pretty
Yeah,
dress on
and,
at
and
this
you and
Christmas
you were
party.
talking about Frank Vogel earlier as well. Like,
Frank
hey, like,
Vogel's Frank Vogel is, I think Phoenix is like fourth in Vegas odds to win the title. And I'm like, how, Sway? It ain't NBA
they don't even
2K where
got
they
no roster,
just drink Gatorade and get back on the floor and just keep shooting up shots. It's like, and you have three guys who basically play the same way.
and they all
And then you have
making, what was it, like
you
723 million?
they're making damn near $1 billion from those three. Let's throw Aiton in there. That's $880 million to four dudes. And
and
you
you,
need 11. You need
yeah,
6 or 7 more guys on top of that four. And they got to get a check. They're not going to play for free. Now you got to
yeah,
go get Jabari Parker and Stanley Johnson
and
and try
Chason
to get
Randall.
Joe Dumars out of retirement. I'm like, what are you thinking? Like trying to get Larry Bird out here to shoot us some threes for the
Hey,
Suns.
maybe Melo can make a comeback.
Man, he waved at the Garden. That's it. Kion, you can go get Kion. Maybe you can get, you go get Bronny next year and bring in LeBron with him, and LeBron plays for the veteran minimum. But like I said, a lot of teams that Golden State's about to see this because Golden State's success was they had the coach, they had the star, like they fired Mark Jackson, but then they brought in Steve Kerr and they had the core players in place and they kept them. Clay Thompson probably shouldn't have got his extended deal off the
Hmm.
two lower leg injuries for a jump shooter.
Hmm.
Probably shouldn't have got that deal. He got his deal.
Draymond probably
Draymond
shouldn't get this deal he about
probably
to
shouldn't
get.
get this next one, but he will, based off the fact that in 2022 they won a championship. So maybe right at the nostalgia. A lot of these guys are getting deals before they do anything for you because you're just kind of hoping you keep it together, i.e., Zion. Even John Morant. John Morant has a great deal, but you knew his behavior was nutty. You knew how his entourage behaved because I'm pretty sure they didn't just get like this because he signed his deal last year, and the money hasn't even kicked in yet. So they're acting like this before he even gets into that extension. I think the money kicks in this season, which is going to be cut down by essentially damn near a third with the 25 game suspension. So I mean, like I like teams making trades. Like I said, I like Porzingis going to Boston. I think it helps them with length and it didn't seem like a lot had to move for that to happen. I like the three team trade seemed to work a little better. It seems like everybody's kind of getting what they need. So maybe Dame works some kind of 3 team deal. I don't know
So,
what team you will work. Maybe
so
you
are we
work
gonna
Kyrie
see?
in and get Kyrie sign a trade to Portland, and then Dame goes to Miami, and then Tyler Hero and somebody goes to Dallas. I'm
Are we gonna
something
see?
like
Are we
that.
gonna see the goat in the trade? The
Who
goat,
you talking about LeBron?
Paul George.
Boy, stop.
Are
Boy, stop.
we gonna see Paul
Um,
George in the trade?
I no, because I think he's so injury. I won't say injury prone, but he got injured, and people thought he was going to come back before the playoffs ended, and didn't. So that leads people to think that either it was worse than they said, or he is just injured so much that he can't recover at the
Hmm.
same rate that he did before.
Hmm.
Um, and on top of that, like there's I don't think there's a reason to trade for Paul George. I don't know what he gives you to where you give up assets for him.
Well, not at this stage, but yeah, 2 years ago would have been okay, maybe.
Yeah, like we're looking at a lot of these players, and it's running out. The game time is getting short. I mean, at 32, it's only so long. Even I'm not even talking about like just physically, just like how long do you think a guy's going to want to keep doing playing on mediocre teams, even though the money's coming in? Because after you make, like, granted, I've never made this kind of money, but I imagine that Devin Booker's probably made in contracts maybe about 80 to 100, 110 million with like more money coming. He plays a couple more years. He's probably getting 45 in the next couple of years. DeAndre Ayton's going to get 130 million. Bradley Bill's up to his contract's like 245. A guy like Jokic is 265. I think Doncic is getting like 200 and something. Dame Lillard has 213 left. Steph signed like a $220 million extension. Like these guys are getting $200 million in the course of 3 or 4 years. All of them aren't playing on great teams. So how much longer do you think you're going to keep these guys after? Like, you know what? I got $200 million in the bank right now. I got property everywhere. My kid's 7, or my kid's about to be, seventh grade, about to
Well,
work on his skills. Like, do I need to do what? Like, 'cause you're not going to get the
well,
20-year LeBron
Mark Cuban better be working the phones because Luca get up out of there. They gonna come drag his ass out of the building and Gaddafi him.
guy. Well, but that's the same thing in Dallas. Is just that you're building around the player, but you don't have the coach that fits the player. Somebody got to tell Luca, dog, at you get the ball at 20 seconds, you got to make a pass by 12 that's going to get us to somebody else, and you can get it back at 6 and shoot your little floater, but don't just hold it. And you
Right.
got guys like Porzingis, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Hart. Like you had all these guys just kind of standing around waiting on the ball, and it's like everyone's
Yeah.
not just standing to shoot threes.
So that's what I was gonna ask you. That was one of the people I was gonna ask about is Tim Hardaway that you keep calling Anthony. is
Yeah.
is he a trade piece now?
Well, I don't know what's available. I don't know what's out there because no one's doing one-on-one trades. I think a lot of teams are looking to
Well, assuming that
give
Kyrie
you
comes
pennies
back.
and get diamonds back.
Well, assuming that Kyrie comes back, they got JaVale McGee, they got Derek Lively, who they just drafted the other day, tanked just to trade down 2 spots to get him, even though he was probably there
They got
anyway.
Powell.
They got Powell, Kleba, Reggie Bullock, so like as is right now, they're probably fighting for the play in again next year, unless we're
See,
assuming.
I don't think so because I don't really see any other team. I think Denver is well constructed. I think I think the Lakers because they have presumably a healthy LeBron, and maybe if they can keep one or two of their free agents that could be potentially on the market and AD. And it seemed, and Larry Bird said this in a quote I saw the other day. He was like, "I never pursue free agents if they played with LeBron." He's like, "Because LeBron can make those guys look better than they are." So maybe he gets a couple of, maybe Rudy Gay on a buyout comes from Atlanta to LA and he plays a couple of years. Maybe Denver can't keep Jeff Green in it.
Was
And
that
you kind of get
Rudy
like some
Gay?
cast off. You get some cast off players who are like
Rudy
just
Gay is the new
professionals.
Channing Frye.
Like some, I don't want to use cast off because you guys are professional athletes, but guys that are just like journeymen.
Yeah,
I
like why are
think
you
the
even in the
Chris
league right
Paul to the
now besides a
Warriors thing,
friendship?
exactly. Your buddy made a
Tristan
call.
Thompson.
Tristan
Yeah.
Thompson, yo, he was out there talking cash shit in that game against Jokic. Jokic just was smiling like, look at this guy. I'm gonna go ride my horses. But he must like those kind of players because you're not gonna get like Trey Young's not coming to LA for some 2031 draft pick. Maybe a sign and trade with Austin Reeves if Atlanta's feeling like, yo, we can rebuild with a new attitude, a bunch of guys that will come in and listen to Quinn Snyder versus a couple of guys who didn't listen to the last couple of coaches. I mean, so like maybe that's a piece you can sell. But for the most part, I think these teams are set. Or teams like Charlotte, they're just probably gonna just they're gonna run out. They're gonna run out the best team that they can, and it probably will be unsuccessful. Team like
Yeah, they'll have
Washington's making moves, and Jordan Poole's gonna average 26.5 points next year.
presumably Charlotte will have
41%.
Miles Bridges back. You know, PJ Washington's a restricted free agent. Terry Rozier has probably been on the trade block just as long as John Collins.
Yeah, but that's the same. What's the construct of the team? Is the team like is LaMelo Ball the point guard or the two
Yes,
guard?
he's the point guard,
Is Rozier the point guard or the two guard?
the two
Is he the
guard.
second unit guy? Is he two guard? Is he the guy who holds the ball all the time? Miles Bridges is
Well, it
his
depends
connection
because
with
LaMelo is on the all injured team too.
okay. Then you have Brandon Miller coming in. Where does he fit in? Does he have any dog in him? Or does he or is he just a dude that just happens to be tall and talented and plays basketball? Because I haven't because I've heard, they talk about Wembanyama, talk about his maturity. So I think San Antonio will be all right. They won't win many games, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a great free
But they'll be
agent
competitive.
destination. They'll be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Duncan will take over as a head coach in a couple of years when Pop calls it quits. Uh, then you have Scoot Henderson. They people raved about his intensity. The Thompson twins, people saw. Granted, it was a OTE, but they played together.
Mm-hmm.
They made game-winning plays, and they won. The championship of the league that they were in. Brandon Miller, we saw him just kind of, like I said, we all were, privy to his personal life and the legal situation. I was,
Oh,
he was
Malika
captivated in.
Andrews got that down.
You don't have to keep bringing it up. It's not like the NFL draft and was like when they asked Des Bryant's mom if she's a prostitute. Just like you don't have to like shit on these guys. You can make an honest assessment. Hey, he had some personal issues going on that are well documented, and maybe that adversely affected him during the NCAA
Yeah, maybe he
tournament.
was distracted.
Distracted.
Best case scenario, he was distracted.
So is he going to be distracted by the fact that he went number 2 overall and there's this expectation of him now? Is he going to be able to adjust to life in the NBA? Is he going to get the body? Like, where's he going to play? Is he going to play the 3? Is he going to play the 4? Is he going to get to 220 pounds? Because right now, 200 pounds, I got a 14-year-old that's 170. 6 foot 170. So it's like, and he's 14. You're 6'9", 200. That seems like you might want to be a little bit bigger.
And then, of course, there's always the saga of Russell Westbrook.
Russ is going to be like president of the United States like 50 years. The dude is just resilient. He never says a negative word about anyone. He could have gone in via the press about KD. He didn't say anything. He had a couple of subtle things I saw him do. He did something with his wardrobe. He had like he wore like a vest or something that said something on it in French, and someone was like they looped it back to like something KD did or said or something like that. When he played the Lakers, he played his ass off. When he went to the Clippers,
yeah, he gonna love Chicago.
He went at is that what they got him going?
No, that's where I got him going.
You got him going to Chicago?
Yeah,
I think the fans will love him. I think the fans love him. Like, I mean, he's probably a lot of guys' favorite player, even in the league.
Yeah, he's Wembanyama's favorite player.
So maybe he goes to San Antonio. I don't know.
Now that would be entertaining, and I will be there.
Absolutely. At ESPN, ABC, TNT, they're on it.
And then we can start talking about the play-in.
because the way people want guys to play, these free agent signings, guys like Porzingis, Harden, KD in the playoffs, the way people want, they demand that we want to see KD do this. Russ does that. He averaged 30-point triple-double after KD left. And he went after him every time they played Golden State. And when they asked him about an interview, he was like, "No, we're just a couple of competitors, man. It's my brother. I love him. I've loved him since we've been in the league. That's never going to change." And it's just like, he doesn't like him,
Yeah.
Like it was a little
Yeah.
bit of a sting to it because everyone was blaming Russ for KD leaving.
Right.
And KD never came out and said, no, I wanted to play a different type of basketball. And I really like the basketball they play in Golden State. But even if he said different type, they were like, oh, yeah, I want to play with Russ.
Right. Right. Right.
And he never really said until recently, he was talking about Kyrie and James Harden. I think even past couple of years, I think he's kind of realizing that, this media NBA thing is just bugging. So,
I know. And shout out to Easy Money Sniper for getting up in the Twitter spaces and letting those people know who was who and what was what.
it's bananas. It's bananas that he does that, but I think it would be like
I
the
like
highlight
it
of my
though. Like I
if
used to
if
criticize
he
him
hit
for
me,
it,
I used to
but
criticize it too, but it's like that's kind of dope. Like
yeah,
if you're
like
gonna do it, do it. If you're gonna live this life, do it.
yeah, like Russell Westbrook would be the perfect dude to do something like that.
Russ was in the VIP lounge in the playoffs.
With all the stuff that people talk about him, and
Russ was in the VIP lounge at halftime in his sweaty uniform, ready to knuckle up with somebody. Like,
yeah.
dude has corona, and I was like, come on, man.
So
Like, I
so so
get,
you
yeah, this is
so
a
so,
top
so you don't
athlete.
think
You get how it is.
you don't think Danny Ainge got a couple of more moves in him this offseason?
Well, his moves have to be like the person has to be locked in for 2 or 3 years because NBA players don't like Salt Lake City.
Yeah, because I know like Colin Sexton doesn't seem like a Danny Ainge type player, but I guess we'll see.
I like Colin Sexton. I mean, I mainly like him from
I'm
his
not
viral
saying I
clip,
don't like him. I'm just
his
saying like
viral
he just
clip when
doesn't
he
seem.
they stare down at the free throw line.
Yeah,
When he's in high school,
yeah,
that's probably one of my favorite clips because like that's what I want somebody to do. Like if I'm watching a competitive, I want your personality to come through in those kind of moments, and then back it up, which he always did. I don't think he's a bad player. I
no,
remember the
not at all. I
game.
just don't think he's a
I think a
Danny
game
Ainge
against
type player,
what is a Danny Ainge player like?
like a Marcus Smart or like a
He's
just
intense.
like the. Hmm?
He's intense. He plays tough defense, makes tough shots. He's a good teammate. You could tell he's always cheering his teammates
Can he
on.
be? Can he be the heart of a team?
Do you need him to be the heart of the team, or
No,
can the
but
team be the heart?
Danny Ainge was like one of the early shooting guards that like got up in people's faces and all that. Like he just, yeah, I don't know. Like,
Yo, he was like a top three sport athlete in high school. Danny Ainge,
mm-hmm,
like he was one of the first ones that were getting recruited for every sport by every school when he was
mm-hmm.
in high school. Like I saw that like a couple of months ago. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't. I like Utah. I like Utah's talent. I just don't know with the John Collins thing. You just drafted Hendricks the other day. Like I just,
You can do it twice if you get like we were talking about that video earlier. If you can rebound, you play hard. If you play hard, one thing that will happen: the Utah media, Salt Lake City media, especially, will never write a negative word about you.
mm-hmm,
You're gonna get nothing but praise and adoration from the fans, and they'll boo the hell out of the opponent, and they might throw some racial epithets. There's a few people out there that will get into Russell Westbrook, but if you're a member of the team, you're gonna feel at home. You're
mm-hmm.
gonna feel comfortable, and if you can divorce yourself from this expectation that I'm an NBA star and I want NBA star treatment outside of the arena,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get so much love inside the arena.
Well, I wish people cared about John Collins because John Collins probably got something to get off his chest. So, you know, it's that time of show where we got to get something off our chest.
I think I'm pretty clear this week, man. It's like
It's all
sports has
good, man.
been
I just got a
all
quick
good,
one.
you know.
I just
All
got a
right.
quick one, like so I was sitting around thinking about this today. I was listening to Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo, New England's finest, if you will. And they were sitting around talking about Kyrie Irving and how, Dallas is the market. That's the end of the market is right there, just Dallas. And I was thinking to myself, Kyrie Irving, regardless of how you feel about him personally, is a uber talented person. He may not always say the right things, do the right things. He pissed me off with the whole like, why y'all talking about me? It's because you sitting at the Laker game. That's why we talking about you.
Yeah.
But overall, everything I hear about Kyrie Irving from players is how awesome he is, how generous he is. We've seen what he's done with the WNBA. He's out here paying for funerals. He took time off. Now, I don't know if it was a BS excuse or not, but he took time off after January 6th because he said he needed a reset because it was getting to him. It's funny to make jokes about him thinking that the earth is flat and all that good stuff like that. But for all intents and purposes, I've never heard anyone in the locker room talk bad about Kyrie. Even when he came out and was like, I want out of Cleveland because I want the perks that LeBron gets and I don't get my props. Nobody came out and was like, yeah, Kyrie's selfish like that, man. Like, he takes away from the team because all he cares about is himself. And he's always comparing himself to LeBron and so on and so forth. We didn't hear any of that. So as I was sitting there listening to Russillo and Simmons talk about him, it made me think of one Terrell El Dorado Owens, because we heard a lot of these same things about T.O., and T.O. has provided some of the best moments of my sports watching fanhood, even though he never played for any of my teams. T.O. with the pom-poms, T.O. with the Sharpie, and my ultimate favorite down at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base at the NCO Club when they were playing the Ravens and he got up and scored a touchdown and did the Ray Lewis dance. I lived off of that for about a year. Every time I saw this one dude in the streets, I just break out the Ray Lewis on him, because T.O. was that impactful. But the point being, is that from everybody that you talk to, except for maybe Hugh Douglas, T.O. is one of the best teammates that these guys ever had. And the media made it a mission to tear these guys down just because they walked a little differently than the rest of us. But we want our athletes to be authentic and we want our athletes to have personality. But then we kill them for displaying that personality that we request of them. Every time. So it made me think about that, and I just want Kyrie Irving to know that I appreciate him. I don't agree with everything he does, just like there's not a person on this planet walking around that I agree with everything that they do. Kyrie maybe didn't have to post a link to that video and piss off half of America.
Listen, the video was on Amazon. Nobody mad at Jeff Bezos.
You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, Kyrie Irving, if nothing else, is Kyrie Irving. And how could he be anything else when he knows where he comes from?
Cheers.
So, what I'm saying? I just had to get that off my chest because, like I said, it's the good thing. Everybody wants to jump on Kyrie. I know everybody got mad about the COVID thing. The COVID thing wasn't his fault. That was New York City's fault, with their mandates. You always talking about too much government. Now you want Kyrie to listen to the government.
It was ridiculous, man.
It don't make sense.
Ridiculous going around New York City.
It don't make sense. Even Stephen A. Smith was talking about, like, I like Kyrie Irving. He's a good brother. I just want him to go to work. You know what I'm saying? So he could sit around with the bags under his eyes looking like Stephen A. So like, but at the end of the day, I appreciate T.O., and what he meant to football. Obviously, Kyrie Irving is probably not the level of basketball player that T.O. was a football player. But the overall point being is that for some reason, everybody's locked on them with the lasers and want to tell you how awful they are when the dudes that share spaces with these individuals have nothing but positive things to say about them. And, even Kobe Bryant, like Kyrie Irving was like the little brother that he never had.
Yeah, he's like, you got to guard me. He's like, I'll lock you up. He's like, you can't guard me. You got to guard me. He's like, young. Yeah, like I said, my whole concept of if somebody tells you they're mad about something, they're mad at a person, they're mad at this concept, ask them 2 follow-up questions.
Yeah, let's put this in practice real quick. Like, yo, I'm mad at Damian Lillard.
All right, so what did he do?
So he has decided to play on a mediocre team for the last 10 plus years, and then now all of a sudden he's acting like he's surprised that they're going nowhere.
All right. So should he want to stay there or should he want to leave?
He should have wanted to leave 3 years ago.
Would you stay at a terrible job even if you stay a little too long? Would you say, you know what? Well, I stayed this long, so I should stay, or should I try to get another opportunity?
No, I'm looking for opportunities the first chance that I get.
and he's looking at the opportunity the first time he realized, like, hey, this is not going to work out. I thought it was.
But the problem is, this ain't the first time. You know, he just never wanted to believe.
No. I said the first time he realized. There's a difference between first time he hoped that it wasn't the case, and now you realize there's a difference. People stay in a bad marriage until they realize they go on vacation and realize, like, oh, this is how I can live my life.
Well,
I
that's
can smile
because
all day.
that's a little different.
And they come back like, listen, hey, baby, check it out.
No. It's cheaper to keep her. It ain't cheaper for Portland to keep him.
Sometimes you just need that moment. Like I talk about with a friend about it. It's like, yo, I had a bad haircut once when I was like 13, 14. And my boys was laughing at me. And we was playing spades, and this girl was rubbing my head, and she's like, Ralph, I like this. I was like, a word? This is the move? Couldn't tell me nothing after that. Like sometimes you just need that extra piece of information.
Yeah, you like this bowl.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going to that barber. I was ready to go fight the barber. 13 years old.
Me and the Wiz got into that one time. You know, like before I started shaving my head, you know, I was still trying to line it up. I had my black ice and all that kind of stuff. And you know, she's like,
you gotta let it go.
You know, she like, who you trying to look good for? Who you trying to impress? And I was like, yo, I don't care about these broads. I said, if it was about that, I would just shave my head because I get more attention that way. And she said, you do what now? And I said, yo, that Sports Reports is ordered. That's that is Mr. Logical.
She was buying toupees right now. She on Amazon buying wigs.
You know what I'm saying? That is Mr. Logical. I am 2-5. You know, 4th of July is coming up. So we'll keep you posted, but we may only get at you once next week, but we will be back on Thursday. So America, free agency starts this weekend. So, you know, we're going to be following that up next week. You know, we're going to keep the trade talk going because the flea market is open.
So many role players about to get $200 million contracts.
Yo, I'm sitting up here.
150.
I'm sitting up here looking at this stuff, and I'm sitting up here like, yo, Fred VanVleet about to be like, he about to get the equivalent of Monty Williams, you know? Yeah. whatever that equivalent for a player
Fred is. Getting the Maybach.
Yo, I'm sitting up here like, Brooke Lopez is 35 years old. Somebody about to pay him like he's 25.
Pack up the Brinks truck like the town.
But as Gilbert Arenas said, you better go rebound. Because this scoring ain't meant for all of y'all.
Everybody can't shoot.
But people, like, review, subscribe. It's
follow,
free.
Share.
It's all we ask.
Tell your friends, tell your grandma.
Yeah, tell granny. Like, you know, remember that fabulous line? What was it? You know, I'm in the throwback so older to make your grandma glance.
Dance.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We love you, America. We out. Peace.